Hey everyone, Joshua Kirk here with you once again, and now it's time for episode 238 of Album of the Day, before we get into today's review, hope everyone had a great 4th of July a couple of days ago, I certainly did, hopefully all of you probably, had a cookout or got to see some family or something like that. Anyway, let's get right to the review. So today's artist is a Florida rapper who sort of started out kind of well-known, but also kind of an obscure sort of talent coming out of the Florida hip-hop scene, but now is kind of, becoming part of the upper register of some of the decade's best hardcore rappers. Today, of course, I'm talking about the rapper known as Denzel Curry. Denzel Curry, which I'm here to review one of his latest albums, released on July 27th, 2018. And the album is called Taboo. And as you can see, this is the album cover, where he's essentially got some clown makeup on his face. I will say, this is definitely one of my favorite rap albums of 2018. I mean, the album has definitely, I'd have to say, actually grown on me since I first put it on my year-end list for 2018. I mean, heck, I think it's even better than Daytona. So, bold statement right there. And there's the back. There's 13 tracks on the album, and it's over 43 minutes. And there are like 3 parts to this album that all have their kind of particular dynamic to it, and yet I think it all flows together really well to create a very cohesive album. And of course, this is his first for a major label, which is Loma Vista Recordings, which is a Concord-based major label. Yeah, and then, not much going on in this booklet. It's just the liner notes for the songs. And there are vinyl versions of this album, which I may have to get my hands on a vinyl copy of this. The way I recently got my hands on a vinyl copy of Janelle Monáe's Dirty Computer, I was very happy about, because I love that album so much. Yeah, and here's the CD. Yeah, and that's the CD version of Taboo, the new album or one of the newer albums by Denzel Curry. Excuse me. Now, I had known about Denzel Curry before. I had checked out his album Imperial in 2016. Listened to it once, which kind of made sense. I mean, I did really like what I heard on it, but he still kind of needed to improve upon some things. It was an album I liked, but didn't really love. But Taboo, I will say, is a substantial improvement from that particular album. I mean, he still definitely got that very kind of sort of in-your-face and very sort of ferocious delivery, as well as his very hardcore lyrics that feature some pretty clever poeticisms in there. But I think here he's really kind of found his voice, and also the sound of this album is easily the best production I've ever heard on one of his albums. And it kind of starts out with the kind of soulful and beautiful title track, Taboo. And really Denzel actually shows more singing duties on this album. And I really like his performance on the title track. Welcome to the darkest side of Taboo. All I got is permanent scars and tattoos. Great hook on there. And also the verse that he delivers on this track is great. He's sort of rapping to himself a little bit and kind of talking about some pretty like terrible things that have happened to him, like being molested at the age of 5, and sort of trying to kind of tranquilize the hate inside of him, showing that he's really becoming a little more mature on this project, but really delivering some of his strongest lyrics to date. The track Black Balloons also is kind of one that sort of goes pretty in depth about his mental health problems and how he feels like there's kind of he feels kind of tethered to some black balloons full of doubt and pretty negative feelings that kind of follow him around wherever he goes. And it's put over also a great beat. Really like the kind of soulful keyboards on here. And GoldLink delivers a really good guest verse, really showing some kind of chemistry. They both have a very different style of rapping and flow, but I think they complement each other really well on the track. And there's also this kind of funny little skit at the end of the track that's basically kind of like, sounds like a radio report, but it's basically Denzel talking to this other rapper, sort of telling him that, you better, try your best to deliver, because, the game kind of is in need of honest rappers, and we're just running out of time here. And then of course it does end with the pretty haunting spoken line of, what exactly are you trying to hide, Mr. Curry? Mr. Curry, which he definitely does a good job sort of talking about how he is willing to change the rap game and sort of give him that extra originality and creative boost that it kind of needs, like on the track Sumo, which I love. Killer beat on the track, great hook on there too, and I really like how just sort of in your face he is on this track. I mean, when I listen to this track, I imagine just a totally nutso mosh pit when I listen to this track, and sort of talking about how like he should be the one sort of getting the most money because of how top notch his skills are. I mean, he's sort of showing that his skills are more tip top than J. Cole's for sure. So for sure, some other tracks where I definitely feel he sort of threatens the rap game to really sort of bring their A game is like on some of the later tracks on the album, like the song Percs, which sort of raises the middle finger at kind of trends in hip hop, like rappers need to take perks or Xanaxes and all these different pills in order to cope with their pain, and also how they're basically just mumbling words together and not really being super coherent, and also how when people get signed to a label, they tend to get treated like slaves a little bit. And Denzel sort of criticizes the idea that sort of industry, that rappers that are just in it to make the money and stuff like that are basically just kind of acting like they're from the dirt, and when in reality they aren't necessarily. And I really like how he says it's very satisfying to hear him say that he totally deserves a Grammy one day, because he most certainly does. For sure. Excellent beat on the track. It shows a little bit of industrial flavor to some of the beats as well, that I think complements his delivery very well. And also, my favorite track on the album, Vengeance, is also one that totally kicks ass and sort of shows, it really does show with a vengeance how powerful Denzel Curry is with some of his with some of his memorable bars, dropping in references to Jimmy Neutron and stuff like that. Says, and he also does deliver a pretty hauntingly catchy hook. I feel the pain, feel the rain, cause I want revenge. And JPEGMAFIA and ZillaKami deliver some really killer guest verses onto the track that I think have great chemistry with them, because they definitely also have some pretty in-your-face and pretty kind of high-energy delivery that I really like. Definitely the best song on the album. For sure. And but also Denzel does address his fame a little bit on this album, and how it's sort of induced partly some great freedom for him, but also kind of more misery for him. The track Cash Maniac is one song that seems to be focusing on the good, on how his fame is sort of caused by him being very high quality, and his music really connecting to people, as it should. And making references this time to like Disney movies. For example, one of the first bars on the verse being, "Back on my palace, I'll fly like Aladdin." That's poeticism right there. And Nigeria does deliver a pretty good hook on the track, even though I will say this track has kind of dulled on me a little bit. I mean, it's still a good song, but I do find it to be a little more underwhelming in comparison to other tracks here, and also the ending vocal intro, the ending vocal from Mickey DeGrand, the fourth kind of had a lot, could have been better. It just felt a little bland in my opinion. And the song "Mad I Got It" sort of talks about how people don't understand his success, and how he's not really an underdog anymore. And it's put really, and his flow is put really well over a very kind of somber, melancholy, piano-laden beat that I did really like. And the final verse of the song sort of talks about how his fame has sort of only brought him more depression and stuff like that. Like on the line of, read it. If you read it, would it be Stephen King? Big cheese only bring me more misery. Put over a very haunting and sadder kind of instrumental. Even though I will say the dreary pianos also have that kind of aesthetic to them too. And then the song Clout Cobain also sort of talks about how his fame has sort of led to his own personal struggles. The title, of course, coming from the legendary Kurt Cobain from Nirvana, who, of course, in 1994 committed suicide, and, of course, left a pretty gigantic impact on many musical worlds, including hip-hop, as it clearly shows on this track. He embraces emo rap here, and this is a track that actually, for a little while, I didn't really like it that much, but the last time I listened to it, I actually, it grew on me. If only more emo rap had this many amazing qualities as this track does. With the really good beat on there, the catchy hook, and I also really like the way he sort of changes his delivery on the song. On the first verse, he's kind of more singing his delivery, but then on the second verse, he's kind of going more towards his traditional flow. So it definitely is actually one of the standouts on the album, even though it made total sense that initially I found the track to just be a bit formulaic in comparison to other tracks here. So tracks here. The song "Switch It Up" is definitely one of my favorites here. Incredible hook on there, and this is a song that's sort of mostly about Denzel's own mental health struggles and how people may think they know him as just being this really kind of aggressive, in-your-face sort of rapper, but they don't really know that underneath it all is someone kind of trying to sort of cope with kind of the strange things that life can bring to you. And how sometimes he feels like he's kind of hanging by a thread. So it's definitely pretty easy to feel empathy for him on this album. Pretty much. Sirens is by far the most politically charged song in the entire record. Really nice instrumental produced by J.I.D on here, and also a great hook on there with beautiful backup harmonies from Billie Eilish, who of course, you probably all know who Billie Eilish is at this point. One of the biggest young pop stars out there, and actually one of the most sort of unique and original pop stars of this decade. And Denzel Curry is actually on tour with her right now. And I really like how Denzel sort of makes a reference to date rape in one of the lyrics, but sort of points out that it's actually a metaphor for basically how black people are treated in the era of Trump in America. Police brutality is still a pretty big thing. Unfortunately. And of course, the Ku Klux Klan still exists. So it makes total sense. Spike Lee would come out with the Black Klansman movie in 2018, because it really is incredibly relevant in today's society, even though that movie takes place in the 70s. J.I.D also delivers a great guest verse onto the track, sort of showing that he and Denzel have very different styles of flow, but they definitely still complement each other really well. And I couldn't agree more with the guest verse, with the final verse that Denzel delivers on the song about how, what's really the difference between Donald Duck and Donald Trump these days. A couple other songs that I'd like to highlight on here. The track The Blackest Balloon, which has some really cool lo-fi kind of production. Not just to how kind of fuzzy the synths are, but also to the way Denzel's vocals are recorded. And it results in a pretty cool effect, in my opinion. And also great, very catchy hook on here. Ooh, ooh, feel like a horror movie. Ooh, ooh, when a brother told it to me. And sort of talking about how people think that he's changed, that he's not really the same, and stuff like that, and Denzel sort of feels the same way. So this is kind of a reprise of the themes he was sort of addressing on the Black Balloons track. And the closing track on here, Black Metal Terrorist. Man, he does not pull any punches on this track. By far, maybe the most aggressive song in the album, but it seemed like the right call, pretty much. Really like the industrial flavored beats and the way he's just kind of shouting his lyrics, but still having some real emotion to his performance, and how he just kind of is proud to be sort of on the upper echelon and no longer feeling like an underdog, and how he's going to show all the so-called talented rappers that he is like stronger than anybody. So I think it's a perfect way to close the album. So yeah, overall, definitely a very consistent and very strong hardcore hip-hop album. There are a couple of moments here that I think are a little more underwhelming. I already highlighted Cash Maniac as being one of those tracks, and also the track Super Saiyan Superman is definitely, as of right now, my least favorite track on the album. I initially did really like it, but it definitely has kind of turned into a track that kind of it seems like just a more unrecognizable Denzel Curry for sure. In terms of his performance and his flow, I mean, there are a couple memorable bars in there, but it just kind of comes off as a little bit of a letdown. So I would say, if I had to pick probably, I mean, all the sections of this album are pretty good, but if I had to pick probably the weakest one, it'd have to be probably the first sort of part of the album. I mean, it is good, but the part 2 and part 3 are just like super super strong in my opinion. And opinion. So yeah, definitely really dig this album. It certainly makes sense that this is by far This is pretty much Denzel's breakout album for a good reason. I mean, it totally deserves all the critical acclaim, along with the millions of views that the music videos for songs like Clout Cobain are getting, because it definitely is some very high quality and very memorable hardcore hip hop. The reason I'm referring to this album as one of his latest is because his newest album is actually one that came out May 31st, 2019, called Zoo. I did listen to the album, and to be completely honest, it was a little bit of a disappointment, in my opinion. I mean, there are a few bangers on there, like the track Ricky, or the song Birds featuring Rick Ross. I mean, Rick Ross is showing actually some pretty good improvement. I mean, like on his guest verse on Pusha T's Daytona record, the song Hard Piano is actually now my favorite track on that particular album. Yes. Yes, and his verse on the song Birds by Denzel Curry was also really good too. But overall, it just seemed a little more formulaic and sort of lightweight than I would like to hear from Denzel. Zell for sure. This one is definitely the one I will be coming back to more than Zoo for sure. But I'm going to give Taboo a strong 8 out of 10. If you have not heard this album yet, go check this album. If you like hip hop with a really good attitude and plenty of grit to it, then you're definitely gonna fall head over heels for Taboo, I think. So that's my review of this album, and I'll see you for episode 239. Finished, Denzel.